Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 172 of the Terminal City FC podcast, part of the Area 51 Sports Network. Josh Roy joined alongside Nathan Dirk, as per usual, and we're live on the Area 51 Facebook, Twitter, and Terminal City FC YouTube channel. And yeah, I got the cam back, so no gray avatar this week. But you know what's also good? The Vancouver Whitecaps. They're playing pretty well this week and proving some people wrong early in the season.
Yeah, we've got a couple of big games to talk about. The home opener on the weekend, and then also last night with Champions Cup against Monterey. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the home opener against the defending MLS Cup champions, LA Galaxy. And yeah, Galaxy, no pain, still no pooch, but still a big win, especially in the home opener, and a pretty fast start, too. A nice ball from Matias Laborda to find Pedro Vite, and he finds Sam Adekugbe for the tap in, and 2 goals in 2 games for the Canadian left back, who isn't known for scoring.
MLS actually, I think, posted a thing that said that's the first, or it's only the second time in MLS that a defender has done that in their first 2 games of the season.
Yeah, which is very impressive. And the Whitecaps, continued to press, but just couldn't get that second goal. But then, disaster, tragedy, whatever you want to call it, struck. Sam Adekugbe really tweaked something. He was down on the pitch, signaling to the medical staff. Remember, you and I were in the press box. We saw him down, and we're like, "Oh no!" And then,
well, it looked bad. It looked bad. Like we were looking at replays. It looks like it at one point. It looked like they were trying to snap his knee back into place. Turns out it looks like it's a quad.
Yeah.
So not the knee, which has historically plagued Adekugbe, but there is no timeline on this right now. Like it's not good. My guess is this might take him out of Nations League for Canada. And I mean, he tried to do a run on the side to see where his leg was at, and right away, I mean, he buried his head in his jersey and he was in tears.
Yeah,
he knew in himself what was going on.
Yeah, he knew. There was it was quiet around the stadium, and yeah, he was in tears as he came off. The fans even chanted, "Sam Adekugbe, he's one of our own," which is a good chant because he technically is one of their own academy product. But I feel bad for the guy, what he's been through over the past year. He was coming off such a high, and then he's on the low like 15 minutes later.
We talked to him at the beginning of the season a number of times, and the one thing going through his head is right now, I'm fit, I'm ready. I know coming back to Vancouver, I've had these issues, which for some reason it was always compounded within that one season and a half. But I'm ready to go. Like this isn't going to be it. And to have something like this happen is just so deflating.
Yeah, and it's just very heartbreaking to see. It was heartbreaking to see him in tears as he left the pitch. And the Whitecaps are thin at left back because what they have now is 19-year-old Tate Johnson and Eddie Ocampo, who is more naturally a right back.
Yeah. So Ocampo is who Sorensen decided to bring on in favor, to replace Adekugbe. Right foot playing on the left. So unfortunately, it kind of negated the overlap with Gauld on that side. In the end, for the latter half of the game, I hate to say it, but it made Gauld more quiet because you don't have a guy doing outside runs. Instead, you have a guy wanting to cut inside. That's just the nature of, you put a right-footed guy on the left side. It's going to happen, right?
Right.
And I hate to say it, but after Adekugbe's injury, the Whitecaps lost themselves.
Yeah, they looked
for about 10, 15 minutes going into the half.
Yeah, and then pretty annoying goal to give up. Takolka mistimes like the LA Galaxy player going down the left, and then he leaves a huge part of the net wide open. Could argue that Blackman was probably fouled in the box, but then Gabriel Peck just tapped it in.
I'm actually watching it back right now. I think it would be an argument you'd lose.
Yeah.
To me, if that was given as a foul, it's incredibly soft.
Yeah, I guess they got it right.
Yeah.
There. And then, just it looked like emotion got the better of Vancouver in that half. They weren't clicking offensively. The passes were starting to get wonky, and then they gave up the goal. But halftime, Sorensen said something, Gald said something, and then it was all Vancouver. Just
Yeah.
the way they pressed, they controlled the ball. Like many times in that second half, LA Galaxy couldn't get out of their half.
We saw the team that not only played with a confidence that they could get that goal back, but that they didn't need to get it right away. They were patient. They weren't. They were no longer emotional. They were playing their game in their building, and I think that's a very, very important thing because we're used to seeing the Whitecaps get knocked off their game, and it did happen. Like let's be honest, it happened towards the end of that first half, but they found their way back, which I think speaks a lot to the character of this group right now, right? A lot of these players have been together for a long period of time. There's been a few additions. There hopefully will be a few more, but there's an understanding within that locker room, and I think the game against LA Galaxy showed that on display.
Yeah, there's always been a sense of togetherness, me versus me, and not we and not me mentality with the Whitecaps, and it's really shown in this game. And even like Pedro Vite, man of the match by far, just one of the probably the best performance we've seen from him as a Vancouver Whitecap, especially when Ali Ahmed came on. Vite would move higher up the pitch, and his passes, his long balls were just on point.
Pedro Vite, I think you and I talked about it, that if any player needs to have a year, it's him this year, because this is going to decide a lot of what happens to Pedro Vite at the end of this year. Like, you know, what kind of player is he going to be? Where is his career going to go? Is he going to flourish? Is he going to kind of stagnate? He's at that point where he's entering into those years of, you know, prime for a footballer. Whatever's happening is working for him right now.
Yep.
I think he's been given a little bit more freedom to play how he instinctually plays, and it's really, really benefited him. You're also seeing him pairing very, very well because he's usually kind of on the side of like a midfield three, and whoever is the advanced winger on that side, he's been pairing very well. So you talked about Ahmed. The one game. We've seen it in other games too, where it's worked very, very well.
Yeah, he's done it well
with him and Nelson when we had the Nelson show in his first game.
Yeah, and just like very impressive with the way the Whitecaps control the ball. Campo all over that left side, even though it's not his natural position. The way he just carried the ball into the Galaxy's half, the way he got around the defender to try to create something.
Yep.
I'm seeing glimpses of, okay, yeah, this is why the Whitecaps signed the guy, even though that's not where he usually plays.
It's good to see these players that we don't necessarily get to see a lot of get a run right now. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't because of, you know, another one getting injured, but I'm happy that we're seeing these players get runs, and we'll talk about this, especially when we get to Champions Cup lineup. But games are still coming fast and furious every 3 days. That's not going to stop for the foreseeable future. We still have at least another week of this, hopefully longer. But Sorensen's getting to see the players he has early, right? This is no longer the case of a player sitting on their butt until League's Cup in August, right? We're seeing them now.
Yeah, and
you know what? Good. They're taking their chances.
Yeah, it's good to see. And Sorensen's giving these players opportunities, and it felt like in that half a goal had to come. Like if the Whitecaps didn't win this game, it would be an opportunity wasted, and it came in the 87th minute. That man Pedro Vite with a beautiful ball to Brian White for the header.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? They stayed patient. They played it late, but they stayed patient. And they were rewarded for it. And you got to think, like, out of the MLS so far, those are two very big matches. You've got an away game to a Cascadia rival. You've got a home game against the current MLS Cup holders. Those are big tests for Sorensen and his new side. He's passed them.
Yeah, so far he's passed with flying colors. And what really impressed me, there were 9 minutes of stoppage time.
Yeah.
Whitecaps just stuck to their game, controlled the ball. Like Ocampo was that left side. You know, like in hockey, put the pucks in deep.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Ocampo was doing, like a penalty killer.
Yeah. And you know what? it was a nice contrast to the previous game midweek against the Prisa at Vancouver, where they have those goals up, but it was a little bit frantic towards the end of the game. LA Galaxy, no, it was very calm. Galaxy is trying to get possession to be able to do something with it, get that tying goal. Whitecaps just control the game. They control the game with the end whistle. And that's what I liked, is that they played to that end whistle. Because that was something that Sorensen has mentioned on a couple of occasions. He mentioned it in the first Saprissa game as well, where at the very end of the game, they kind of lost themselves with that very last play. I think that's something that they've worked on. It's a lesson they're taking very quickly.
Yeah, and I asked Sorensen about that. He said that was the one thing he was really, really happy the most, was the way they handled the end of the game. And
I think he said it was one of his favorites things that he liked, because, as a coach, it feels like you're being listened to.
Yeah, and I don't think the Galaxy had a single shot other than that one long chance that Takaoka just caught so easily in stoppage time.
You take a look at the number of shots in the game. The Whitecaps dominated that as well. Possession, probably the most even game that we've seen so far. Whitecaps still ahead on that. They're connecting their passes. They're passing more. They're dictating the pace of the game, how they want to play. And every time you get to do that, it's yours for the taking.
They're controlling the game. And Galaxy, other than the goal, didn't really have any high danger chances on Takaoka.
Plus, doesn't it just make you feel good after Peck's celebration too?
Yeah. Oh, and they did bring on Marco Royce, who I was pretty happy to see, but I don't think he even touched the ball when he came on, or he barely touched the ball.
There are not that many LA Galaxy fans that are happy with Royce right now.
I wouldn't be if I was an LA Galaxy fan.
We were talking with Edgar during the preview of the match from Negs News, who covers the LA Galaxy, and he talked about Royce being a bit more of a cerebral player. He's a thinker, but he plays better when he's paired with someone who's instinctual, like a Ricky Puig.
Yep.
It's not going to happen right now, right? Puig is still out until at least the summer.
Yeah, and Paintel's still out for another few weeks.
At least, yeah.
And should also worth mentioning that Ocampo is suspended for the next game due to looked like a high elbow on, I forgot who, one of the Galaxy players.
High boot. He stomped on the player's ankle. Yeah. That came through with the supplementary discipline. They just, I think, gave him the suspension 2 days ago. Yeah, there's a video out there. Yeah, they're both going for the ball. Obviously, Ocampo is second, and by that point, his ankle or his boots, his cleats are right on the other player's ankle. It's I don't know. It's pretty vicious.
Drew Fisher missed that one, but the league caught it. So he'll also play an undisclosed fine. So the Whitecaps are even more thin at left back.
Yeah, you got to wonder. We'll talk about what we're going to do there, but let's jump into last night and Champions Cup action. Whitecaps inviting Monterey for the very first time. We're used to, if one of the two teams from Monterey is going to play the Whitecaps, we're used to it being Tigres over the years, but we finally get to see the other side of the city.
The Rayados, as they're called. And, well, other than the first 10 minutes, dominating performance from the Whitecaps, and they deserve to win this game.
Absolutely. The first 10 minutes, it was very cagey from both sides. Both sides were, they penetrate a little bit, but then pull themselves back. They were trying to wait to see. It was more of wanting to see what the other side is going to do first.
Yeah, remember, both teams
were doing that.
Both teams were playing their beat teams.
You know what? When that lineup came out, I want to say, I believe that there was 7 changes to the lineup.
Yeah, 7.
It was surprising. There was a lot of discussion in the press box over this lineup. You're given the first minutes of the entire season to players like Halbuni, Bomer. You're giving starts to Ocampo, who hadn't started yet.
And Laborda on the left side, because they're thin at left back.
Laborda on the left side. Now, the reason they did that, you could see, is because with Ocampo on the right, and we know the speed Ocampo has, they also switched Gould and Nelson. So Gould was playing on the right to allow Ocampo now to do those overlaps, which he wasn't able to do on the left side in the previous game.
Well, Laborda stays back.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, 5 minutes into the game, Jaden Nelson goes down.
Yeah, it looked with non-contact injury. Looked like he hurt his hamstring. He tried to give it a go, but I guess they didn't want to risk it. Nelson didn't want to risk it.
What we've been told, it's day to day. He was mainly taken off as precaution.
Which is fine.
It sounds like they've learned their lesson from what happened with Bjorn Utvik. Utvik, in his first start of the season, about around the 60th minute, signaled to come off. Felt that he tweaked something, and they decided to leave him on. Well, he's now being injured for the next 2 games, and he's still on the injury list with a lower body injury, the quintessential hockey injury. And I think they've learned their lesson. Like, they know that they don't have the greatest squad depth. So if someone is not feeling it, you got to make the switch.
Yeah, and if they let Nelson play even more, I'm sure it would have been aggravated. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's day-to-day it's a good sign, but hamstring injuries are no joke. I've actually had a little pain in my hamstring not too long ago. It's painful.
Yeah. Ali Ahmed comes on. Ali Ahmed has the best game of his season so far.
And the way JC Ngando, who also had a very good game, and Ryan Gauld connected.
JC Ngando, this really good. Well, I mean, we barely got to see him since he's been with the Whitecaps because he's been on loan. But what we are seeing from him this season so far, not just this game, but I mean, this game we got to see him as a starter. This has been phenomenal.
The way he wins the ball back, passes, and last night he was like taking on defenders and getting around them. Yeah, I didn't know he had that in him.
Well, what we started to see is when Ahmed came on, the two of them kept switching positions on that left-hand side, whether Ahmed would drop deep or Ngando would play higher up. They would switch back to their, I guess, starting positions, if you want to call it that. There was an understanding between the two of them that this early in the season, I didn't think I was going to see.
Yeah, and annoying to give up that one goal from Monterrey. It looked offside on TV. The One Soccer guys argued that they thought it was offside, but you had a better view than I did last night.
We weren't too sure when we initially saw it, but talking with the Vancouver technical staff, they were very adamant it was onside. It was onside because Ocampo, who was kind of off the screen because he was up on the far side, was running back to position. Yeah. So he got caught up ahead. Yeah, we initially thought it was maybe Halbuni on the line, and we just couldn't tell. But no, they said it was Ocampo, and yeah, they were very adamant that it was an onside goal.
Yeah, good on the technical staff had better view than pretty much anyone. The One Soccer camera angles weren't the greatest, so that was very misleading.
It was tough. It was tough to see, and even what we were getting in house was difficult as well. So
yeah, and after. Looking at
it was a tough goal. I mean, you could say maybe Bomer should have had it, but it was a brilliantly taken shot to the far post, and it was a good goal.
Yeah, and the defender should not have fallen asleep there.
Yeah,
but after that, the Whitecaps recovered, continued getting chances, and Ryan Gauld could have had 4 or 5 goals in this game.
His overhead kick that went off the crossbar.
That would have been one.
There was more than a few hearts and throats there.
Yeah, that would have been on the highlight reels everywhere if it went in.
To show you how much control the Whitecaps had in this game, especially towards the end of the game. I mean, we got to see their possession-based game on display to almost the nth degree. It was 66 possession over the entire game. It was 71% possession in the second half alone.
Yeah, in the second half, it was all Vancouver.
Yeah,
one-way traffic. There's no data on XG from last night's game, but you would think it would be super high.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering if it might be on something like Footmon.
Yeah, I was reading Caleb Wilkins' post-game article for the third sub.
Yeah,
he couldn't find XG data either.
That doesn't happen. I know a lot with MLS. It can be or not MLS with CONCACAF, it can be very difficult to find data like that. And yeah, I'm not seeing anything here. Regardless, the Whitecaps, 21 shots, 6 on target versus 7-3. That tells you just which way the traffic was headed. Almost 250 passes more than Monterrey.
Yep.
And that midfield of Vite, Berhalter, and Ngondo, I have no problem with it. You take Kubas out of that lineup, I'm confident with what they still have there, right?
Even Ralph Priso impressed last night. I
don't think this is his only game. I think he impressed in his earlier start as well. I know a lot of people are getting on him, but when you are the guy that everything is being fueled through, you're bound to miss a few passes. But overall, I think he's been very impressive.
Yeah,
I think he's been a lot more technical than we gave him credit for, and than what Colorado ever saw with him.
Yeah, and I feel like this year he's been so far a lot better than what we saw last year. But it's
he's definitely a squad guy that you can rely on.
So far, he's been very reliable. Good on Priso. And Whitecaps did get the goal in the 86th minute. Gault's free kick finds the head of all people, Bilal Halbouni, for his first Whitecaps goal. Well taken header. Well done to the guy. Both he and Ahmed, by the way, like Ramadan just started, I believe, and they were fasting after 6 p.m. and that's just what made it even more impressive. I don't know how
both of those two players are observing Ramadan right now. So the fact that not only that, but both of them basically played the full 90 minutes because Ahmed came on in the 5th minute for Nelson. It was kind of funny because earlier in the game, I was watching Bilal and I was watching Renko, the center back pairings, and at one point I was thinking, like, I think Bilal's the tallest guy on the team now. And you look at it, he's 6'2". I believe that puts him 1 or 2
just
inches
above Renko,
just above him. Hey, 1 inch, I guess it makes all the difference, right?
Right, and he had a good game. Like Monterrey didn't do too much, especially in that second half in the Whitecaps half. But when he was needed, right, he was just right place, right time, right execution.
I think it's very nice to have basically 4 center backs for 2 spots that you can go between. Last year we didn't see Bilal until Leagues Cup in August. I know that there was injuries earlier in the season and he just wasn't able to draw into that lineup. But the fact that he's getting in now, I'm really, really happy to see. And then again, this is also another Canadian that's really trying to shine.
Yeah, and nice for him to get a goal, which
his first goal with Whitecaps.
Yeah, it was first goal in, they said, on One Soccer since like 2022, 2023 when he was playing in Germany.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go.
And they didn't mention the team name because they couldn't pronounce it, which I don't blame them.
Fair enough.
And yeah, I mean, very impressive performance. Probably one of the best performances that you'll ever see from the Whitecaps, especially against a team like that. Sure,
we were talking about it before. If you want to take a look at CONCACAF club rankings, Whitecaps ranked 29th in CONCACAF. Monterrey ranks 3rd. Monterrey is one of those teams in CONCACAF that have a transfer budget that is massive. Right? Like, this is a team that plays on the world stage. This is a team with history in this competition, having won it numerous times.
They won it 5 times.
I think so, yeah.
Most recent being 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. 1-1. Giving up that away goal is painful. That is one thing that the Whitecaps are going to have to deal with. Going down to Mexico next week. Obviously, they're not going to be playing in Monterrey. There's the Shakira concert that's happening at Monterrey Stadium. They will be playing, I believe, you got to go down the road a couple of hours in the stadium of Santos Laguna.
Yep.
Ironically, Monterrey was just there. They were playing Santos Laguna in their match before the Whitecaps.
And they won that game.
Yeah, they did. 4-2, I believe. I think it was in Santos Stadium. It might have been in Monterrey's, but they were playing that team. That is going to be the real test because you are in Mexico. Sergio Ramos could likely play now because it's in Mexico. And I think the Whitecaps are going to be in for a much different game.
Yeah. New atmosphere, different tactical setup. Monterrey's not going to come out with their B team this time around.
No, let's talk about the atmosphere because last night the announced attendance was about 9,600.
Yeah,
it's a midweek game. It's Champions Cup, and I get it. Like the North American audience, the layman's North American audience doesn't understand tournaments outside of league play and the importance of these things. But that 9,600 in that stadium sounded like 15,000. Like that was a phenomenal attendance or a crowd coming from not that many.
We gave them something to cheer for. Like the Whitecaps just.
It was it was a 1-1 game. It was an exciting game. It was a fun game to watch.
And this honestly looks like a very exciting team to watch right now. The players have bought into Jesper Sorensen's possession-based controlled system. They're all clicking in many ways. There are obviously things to work on, but everyone's buying in. Everyone's on the same page. This is a team that wants to prove people wrong, a team that wants to go further this season in MLS and in the playoffs. It's early, but this team looks dangerous.
This team looks dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle injuries because we're starting to have a little bit of an issue with that, and we can talk about that. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle once teams start to understand how they're playing and start to counter what the Whitecaps are doing rather than still, learning a brand new coach that's in the league that, has never coached in North America before.
And there's still time between now and the MLS Cup playoffs and everything, but the long grind, the MLS season.
Road. Yeah.
And there'll be a lot more trials and tribulations down the road for the Vancouver Whitecaps. So
let's talk injuries because we talked about that left-hand side with Adekubi now injured, prognosis unknown. It's likely going to be a bit. Edier Ocampo is suspended for the one match. So knowing the importance of that side and how fast it needs to be and the overlap that's played, what happens on that right-hand side? Do we see more of Laborda over there? Can we see more of Laborda over there? Because now who goes on the right? Do you play, does Bovalina come in? Or you have a left back. You drafted a left back. You're very, very, very high on this left back. He did well in preseason, and we got to see him for 45 minutes last night. Tate Johnson.
Yeah. The Whitecaps were very high on this guy. They drafted him. He's pretty much in the first team. So
he's in the first team. He's been on the bench every game. We saw him with a couple of minutes earlier. He impressed in preseason. He got 45 minutes last night. One, they wanted to give Laborda some time off because he's played every single minute so far, and he just needs a break. Two, they knew the situation that was coming up for this weekend, and they wanted to see what Johnson could do. We talked to Sorensen about this because they wanted to see what he could do because he might be the guy starting.
Yeah, and they pretty much prepared for this kind of situation with Sam Adekubi out. And there's a lot of trust in this young kid, 19 years old. But
looks like he's 14.
Yeah, it looks like he's 14.
He's definitely got a baby face. But let's talk about the American college setup for one, because the thing is the American college setup, and I believe he was coming from, I think he's a
UNC.
Target.
Yeah, North Carolina.
It's set up to make professionals. It's set up to make professionals. Once you get drafted, if you're lucky enough to get drafted, yes, you got to get up to the pace of the game. You got to understand your team, that philosophy. But it is created to make professional players.
Yeah,
right? That's the money in American college sports. I think what we saw of that 45 minutes that he played is a very, very competent player. It is a player that also recognizes he's still learning, but you're only going to be able to do that if you're
play
given
games.
time. And I think given who we're playing, CF Montreal on the weekend, it is an opportune time to start him.
I think he gets a start on Saturday. And this kid, he has potential to be a very good MLS left back. Scouts have spoke highly of his way to go up and down the pitch,
which is imperative for Sorensen and left backs.
Yep. And Montreal, I think it would be a good opportunity for him to get the start. Like, Montreal are not having a good start to their season.
0-2.
3-2 lost to Atlanta United on opening day. They were in that game, but Latte Laugh of Atlanta United tore them apart. And then in Minnesota, All that possession, not a single shot on target, lost 1-0.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about Montreal, and we can preview that game a little bit. But in my mind, I think you have to give Tate Johnson the license to show what he can do as a start.
Yes.
I think it's a little bit earlier than maybe the Whitecaps were
What
hoping.
anyone expected.
Right? Anyone expected. But you know what? The situation has presented itself. It's against an opposition that I think gives him the best chance to learn. Give it to him. Give him 45 minutes. If you don't like it after that, fine. You can deal with something at the half. But I think you've got to put trust not only in the player, but in the recruitment staff that told you to draft this guy number one for your team overall in the first place.
Yeah, got to give the scouts something to work for and prove that they're right. Like, give the guy an opportunity. Let him learn against a team that hasn't had the greatest start to their season, and they're dealing with injuries too. It's unsure if guys like Samuel Piette may play against Vancouver, but we'll see. I would not be surprised if he at least gets the start. See if he can play the full, like at least one half, and if he continues to do well, maybe up to 60 minutes, depending on what the game is like.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and just stick to the principles, stick to the control possession, but put the ball in the net against Montreal. It looks like Montreal, I don't know, there's such a, first game against Atlanta, they couldn't defend. Second game against Minnesota, they could, but just couldn't score.
Yeah.
Up and down team. All right, so that's the Whitecaps.
Montreal's always been a tough team to get your hand wrapped around.
Yeah, that's the Whitecaps. Little thing about MLS, San Diego had their first game against St. Louis City. Draw. They couldn't beat St. Louis and Roman Burke because St. Louis defended for their lives, but there was some controversy in that game.
Yeah. So the game was actually stopped 3 times in the second half due to homophobic chants. Obviously, we're not going to say it on the show. If you've ever watched, I hate to say it, but if you've ever watched the Mexican national team play, it's something that's very, very common in their stadiums. They've suffered stadium bans because of this. It's and I was watching a little bit of one of the podcasts that cover San Diego, one of the new podcasts that's come up for this team, and it's recognized even in the fan base as a very serious problem that they need to look at themselves. The fact that this was also, I believe, their first ever home match, it makes you wonder, is this a sign of something to come? Or is this something that MLS and San Diego FC can really, tackle and cut it out before it ever really becomes an issue? I think this is something that's going to be watched like a hawk, especially for San Diego's next home match, where you have supporters wanting to be ultras and all that. It's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with. And I hope it's something that they deal with very, very quickly, because it's not something that you want to happen. You take a look, especially in the Champions Cup that we're watching just last night, and they are very, very quick to tell people what's going to happen in a stadium, if there are homophobic chants, racist chants, or anything like that. So being that this is MLS, I hope that they're doing the same, and I hope they take swift action. Moving on, CPL hasn't started up yet, but it is coming up very, very soon. We should talk about Vancouver FC goalkeeper Nico. I'm gonna.
Isopoulos.
Thank you. You came back at the exact right time.
Yeah.
He has announced his retirement at the age of 30.
CPL Originals, played for York
Whitecaps legend, right?
Yeah, Whitecaps Academy product. I'll remember him for that famous comment he made where he was loaned to the Whitecaps in 2022 for like a day.
One
They
game.
had no goalkeepers for one game. And then Valor played Vancouver, and he said before the game, hope they give me a standing ovation.
Yeah. You know
That's
what?
I'll remember him for.
It was a very bizarre situation that happened, but I think he took it all in stride. From the sounds of it, and this comes from his own social media, is it doesn't sound like he's leaving the game entirely. It does sound like I think he's a part of a podcast that he started. It sounds like he might see punditry somewhere in his future, but the one thing it does is it leaves Vancouver FC not a team that already has big holes to fill, but with a lot of holes to fill. Preseason has started. It's underway. They have a threadbare squad.
Yeah, they lost Grady McDonald. And they also lost James Cameron to Colorado Rapids too.
Yep.
So they need to sign some players.
I think right now we were talking about this last week, and someone mentioned that right now registered they have 15 or 16 players.
Yeah, because other teams are bulking up around them. Look at Pacific.
I know Pacific has been moving very, very hard. Was it their goalkeeper that they had, Emil? He also just went to Montreal too, right?
Yeah, and they're looking for a replacement. They did sign a goal scorer, Emmanuel Montellano from the Pumas Academy, former Mexican U18 striker. So they have him, Hurd, Krat, Zanata, Marco Bustos as attackers, and hopefully he can boost their attack because goals were such an issue or lack thereof last season for Pacific.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, early days for the CPL, but have to see what happens there.
Yeah.
So, across the pond, we don't really have
not much because our
team you and I are not in FA Cup.
Yeah. In the FA Cup, only Man City is the big team left.
Yeah. So let's preview what's happening today because we both have big games.
So Conference League today, FC Copenhagen from Denmark. They're actually playing right now. They just started. And I'm just actually going to take a look right now at the lineup, who's playing. So Cole Palmer is in the squad. He's playing. And they're giving minutes to Shim Mahuka, Academy striker, and Tyreek George, Academy winger. Robert Sanchez is in goal. Trevor Chalobah at right back. Gusto at left back. Interesting choice. Reece James in the midfield. So Copenhagen, bigger team than people realize. So just win.
Yeah. One of the bigger teams in Denmark. Not
the biggest team.
I think Brøndby is bigger.
Them and Brøndby.
Yeah.
And Sorensen last season lost the title to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And he was with Brøndby.
At the very end, right?
Yeah. So, and also worth mentioning that Romeo Lavia and Wesley Fofana are back in training. Still no timeline, but that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So that's Chelsea.
Spurs, AZ Alkmaar, round of 16 Europa League. Not the first time that they've faced this team this year in competition. They faced AZ during the league stage, had a 1-0 win in that match. So now they're doing it all over again. Again, return of Troy Parrott. Parrott's had an excellent season with them so far. Academy product. He joined Spurs at the age of 15, I believe, and was with them up until his early 20s. Obviously, last year he was on loan to this league with Excelsior. Has now joined on a permanent, I think it was for about £6.5 million to Alkmaar. And he's quickly made himself the number one striker on that team. He was talking earlier on that he doesn't regret his time with Spurs, that he learned a lot. This was a guy at the age of 15, had a lot of teams that were looking at him, Man United, all the big kind of English clubs, and he decided to go with Spurs, mainly for their youth setup. But I think he's found a home, and I think he's flourishing. That game has started as well. Again, only a couple of minutes into it. Strong lineup. Basically everyone that is healthy, you'd expect to see. Danso and Gray are center back pairing right now. So, Gray's there. was it Van de Ven or no, it was Romero. Romero did make the trip. So he is on the bench, but they're holding off right now, especially because Romero has been called up to the Argentinian national team. And I think they want to make sure that, just coming back from injury, that he's not, doesn't end up back on there. The one interesting thing is Mattis Tell is the guy that is leading the line. He is in between Son and Johnson on the side.
Can't play striker.
Impressive so far. So,
yeah, might as well.
Yep.
And well, that's the European side for our teams. It's worth mentioning that FIFA has announced a $1 billion USD prize money for the Club World Cup, and has also announced the creation of the Women's Club World Cup for 2028.
Yeah, so this $1 billion prize money, it comes with the expansion of the Club World Cup. It's kind of a weird one because if I'm trying to remember right, when they expanded the tournament, they were giving you money just for being in the tournament, right? Yeah. And I think that was going to be about like 50 million or whatever. That's actually been downgraded now. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that the people advising FIFA so that the prize money is higher at the higher levels are the teams that you would expect to be at those higher levels, like Man City and teams like that. So it does feel like, again, they're taking things away from lower teams that had been there, or that, it was a little bit of a carrot, and they're taking it away before they even had an opportunity to try for it.
Yeah. But at least there's a billion USD prize money, and the women are actually going to have a Club World Cup too.
Starting in 2028, yes, they will be going on. That will be kind of like a Club World Cup on the men's side. It'll be every 4 years. I believe it's going to be a 16-team Club World Cup.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So that is, again, one stage less than the men's side. But again, This is only the first year. As the game grows, obviously these competitions should as well.
Yep. And the Men's Club World Cup this summer across the United States, and a lot of teams around the world will be coming. Closest team to us that will be playing is the Seattle Sounders.
Yes, and that's after their win. When it was not last year, the year before.
A couple years ago, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has confirmed the World Cup final next year in New York/New Jersey will have a halftime show, and that is utter woke nonsense. We spoke about halftime shows and how I feel about them. Like in football, it's just no, not in this football. In the other football, yes. A pregame performance, sure, that's fine, whatever. But halftime, nah, not in this football.
And I think what I said is during the halftime, I'm making food for myself. So I'm not going to be watching it anyway. If someone else wants to watch it, fine, go ahead. But it doesn't mean that I need to.
Yeah, why? So, it's not really needed. And I wonder, though, who are they going to ask to who are they going to ask to perform? Like Taylor Swift or something?
Honestly, I would like them to see, if they're going to do it, depending on where your final match is,
it's in
whatever country is hosting it, get an artist from that country. It's supposed to be promoting that country. So
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Taylor Swift.
I know, but that would be such a disappointment, right? I mean, the final of, well, the next one, the final is going to be in the United States. So again, I mean, it's not surprising. But if it's going to be like the next one, the final is going to be in Spain. No, yeah, I think it's going to be, get an artist from that country. I don't know if it's going to be Taylor Swift, sure, whatever. I mean, like I said, I'm going to be making food.
Yeah, I don't know, or maybe it's going to be Beyonce or Jay-Z or both.
Yeah.
Since that New York area, but it's probably going to be some big name pop or rap artist. That's what people like. Like the Super Bowl had Kendrick Lamar, arguably the best rapper of this generation. So maybe the World Cup final will have Drake, and given their beef, it won't even hold a candle.
I honestly couldn't even tell you what this beef is about. I honestly couldn't pick out one of their songs in a police lineup. So
yeah, and I honestly aspire to hate someone as much as Kendrick Lamar hates Drake.
I can't begin to tell you the depths of how little I care.
Yeah, you won't care, but I definitely do.
Yeah.
So back to football. Lyon managers Paulo Fonseca, who I believe has had controversy before, is banned 9 months after confronting a referee in a game they won over Brest.
Yeah, 9 months. This is one of the biggest bans ever handed down to a manager. Now, he has come out. He has apologized. He said that he shouldn't have confronted the referee. I mean, he's getting it right into his face. I think he almost headbutted the guy. Yep. But it does look like Lyon is going to try and appeal this. My guess is they're not appealing the actual incident, that they're going to try and maybe appeal the amount of time that's given. But the ban is kind of nuts. So he is allowed absolutely no access on the touchline or the changing rooms that are used by match officials during or after matches until November 30th of this year.
Crazy ban.
He is forbidden from accessing his own players' changing rooms until September 15th. And this applies to all French competitions. It also means that he's only been in charge for 5 games so far for Lyon. So he's going to actually have to spend the majority of his initial contract not doing his job.
Yeah, and at least I'll let him.
I'm sorry, but you got to look at this. How is this not a fireable offense? Like, you've been on the job for 5 games. You now can't do it for
9 months.
3/4 of a year. I'm sorry, we kind of have to go to someone else. I look at this. This is like Tottenham having Fabrizio, who was the sporting director, him getting the ban in Italy, that ban coming to become a European thing. And it was like, look, we really like you, but you can't do your job. So
why are we paying you if you're not allowed to do your job?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's funny. If I remember right, this is actually a manager that Spurs had actually looked at one point for coming in. But I mean, you want to talk about controversy. I mean, he is as controversial as, say, like Gattuso.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time he's been suspended over this kind of thing.
Have you seen the pictures? And again, it's a picture. It's a still. Still pictures always look worse than they probably are, but it looks pretty bad.
Yeah, it does. And final thing, yesterday, Champions League action, Liverpool PSG dominance. Ousmane Dembele was everywhere, but they couldn't score, and Liverpool ended up winning thanks to Harvey Elliott's goal. Classic FIFA type game.
I was going to say, this is what happened when you get FM'd, Football Manager, right?
Yeah, you get FM'd or you get FIFA'd.
Yeah.
Well done to Alisson. Just prove that
from Alisson.
He's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not the best.
Yeah. Right now, you have to put him up there. I also like that Alisson doesn't do crazy antics like, say, Emmanuel Neuer, who cheers and injures himself while cheering.
Or Emi Martinez.
Who just does Martinez things. Again, fantastic goalkeeper, but needs an arm around the shoulder sometimes. Good on Liverpool.
That was Harvey Elliott's first touch. He was like subbed on for Mo Salah like a minute before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than, take your win, be quiet about it, leave the building.
Yeah, Arne Slot pretty much said like, yeah, we'll take it, but if we drew, we wouldn't have been happy, but we'll take it.
Yeah, that's a thief in the night performance.
Yeah, and they're humble about it, thankfully. And I mean, if I'm a PSG player, I'm kicking myself on how to not score, especially with Ousmane Dembele, who, by the way, this year he's just been world class.
Yeah,
I guess leaving Barcelona was the best thing for him, because now we're really seeing the player that people projected him to be, and the player that Barcelona paid like 120 million euros for.
Yeah,
and he hasn't been injured once, which is even more crazy.
Yeah. I nothing to add. I think he's been a part of that Liverpool setup that just knows what they're doing, and it has shows absolutely no signs of stopping.
Yep, and also should worth mentioning that Dembele changed his attitude over the years, especially this year. So I guess that also helped too.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that concludes this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Montreal is in town to play the Whitecaps, and then Monterrey they're going to be in Mexico to play Monterrey. Chelsea Tottenham action will be back. Hopefully more CPL news pops up, especially Vancouver FC.
Yep.
And we'll all cover all that. Follow our writing for Area 51 Sports Network. Follow me on Twitter at JoshuaRay00. Podcast is at Enduric. Podcast is at Terminal City FC. Nathan is at Enduric. We're on Blue Sky too, so if you want to check us out there, and check out the YouTube channel and Instagram as well.
Absolutely.
So that concludes this week's episode. Peace out.
Take care.